Welcome to the Shop Talk 20 podcast. I'm your host, Josh Edwards, and with me today, I have the wonderful Breanne. Breanne, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm super excited to have you on here to talk about marketing and what's going on in your world. And maybe just for the people that are going to be listening to this, maybe just introduce yourself. Tell us, where you're from and what you do.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Josh. So my name's Breanne. It's the easiest introduction part. I live in Belleville right now. I have four children and a husband who's in the military. So we're a proud military family living here in a military community, which is great.
Awesome.
I moved here from Toronto, so I grew up in the GTA, and kind of got into more marketing things. Probably when I was around 23, it's probably about 10 years ago, when I decided to launch my own e-commerce business and transition from an e-commerce store to a lifestyle blog, and then just kind of continued from there. Ended up working with a really fantastic fertility consultancy for 3.5, 4 years, leading their marketing, communications, and all of their paid advertising and all of their kind of tracking and analytics, and everything that we were really doing and sending out was was coming from my department, which was a great experience. And now I have a really wonderful job. I would say it's probably up there, and I don't think I would have thought that I would have been here, but it definitely is kind of a dream job, a role for me. And so I'm leading all of the marketing and communications and community initiatives for the Belleville Senators, which is our local American Hockey League hockey team, professional hockey team. So that's really exciting. So I've been doing that for coming up to almost a year and a half now, even though I feel like time has kind of stood still for the last year for us. But the pandemic obviously has hit us pretty hard, as the majority of small, medium, and even large size businesses throughout the world. We have not had any games since last March, and we were heading into being we were first in our division, and had a really strong team, and had a really strong group of people in our front office staff, and lots of great players on the ice as well, obviously. And that was all kind of came to a really abrupt stop kind of mid-March last year. And so we had to pivot, as I think the theme of 2020 for the majority of marketers has been the pivot. So we had to kind of throw a lot of stuff into our e-commerce, building that out, and also just kind of try and be a communication platform for the community in finding resources and different things from the businesses that we support through our corporate partnerships, and also just our friends of the Sens, and we have an amazing fan base in Belleville, and so just trying to really support the community. That's been our kind of main focus for the last year, and now we're kind of ramping up to hopefully be starting our season soon. We're still kind of pending provincial approval for our actual return to play, but so there's lots of different things happening behind the scenes, but really trying to be a outlet for the community for communications and resources available and different things like that as we kind of move forward.
Wow, so much wonderful things you said there, Breanne, and there's so much to unpack, which I'm really excited about. And as always, I try to look for areas where I can bring value to our listeners. And certainly, I want to hear from you today because you're going to do exactly that. I really want to focus for a moment just to back up to something you said around, it being a dream job. I talked to quite a few marketers who are in a gig, and they're not always necessarily having the best time depending on the situation that they're in. So for marketers, somebody that comes on, maybe they're a coordinator, or maybe it's somebody who's looking to hire a marketer. What from your perspective makes a good fit, a dream job, if you will, in that kind of a role, both from the entrepreneur that's hiring a marketing coordinator standpoint, and then also the marketing person coming on?
Mm-hmm. So we'll talk first about from kind of an executive standpoint, like what I look for when I'm hiring marketing people on my team. And that would be really just kind of one of the main things is being creative, being confident. I don't as much look at education necessarily. I think in marketing, it's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing, and it really needs people that are fast moving, creative, inventive human beings. And so I'm not looking for a university degree that says that you learned something. I'm really looking for.
So hold up a second. So I don't need a university degree to come and get into the space of marketing.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I'll be honest, I don't have a university degree. I didn't finish my degree program.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love this.
I pivoted away from what I was doing. I was on a really strong directional path my entire childhood. I was involved in horseback riding. I did it very competitively, and that's where I was heading, and I was going to the Olympics, and that was my goal. Second year university, decided I didn't want to do that anymore. And I didn't want to waste any more time doing that. So immediately pivoted into joining the workforce and building my skill sets. So I did do, I've done lots of courses and lots of different things, but really I think in marketing, because things are changing so quickly, you have to have a willingness to keep learning all the time. You have to constantly, if you have that background in education, that's fantastic, but you need to always be building on that. Something that worked in marketing 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, it might not work, especially in this day and age with such a strong digital presence. It might not work anymore. So you really need people who are willing to change and grow and accept feedback. Feedback is one way. Anyone who has been managed by me will know, and anyone who's been my manager will know that feedback is so important. Clear is kind, and that's really what I'm looking for, is people that are going to be willing to, accept feedback, accept criticism in a positive way, and be able to take that and say, hey, it's really good that you gave me that feedback, and here now I have this other great idea. Can we roll with this? Or, can we build out that concept instead?
Breanne, I love that you brought this up, and it to me, I completely agree with you. I think it's such a big truth that you don't necessarily need to go to the Ivy League school to get that university degree in order to get into marketing. The irony of this conversation is I literally did an interview similar to this with the senior external relations vice president of Loyalist College yesterday, and talked about education and marketing and things of that nature. But yes, I too agree that there is a side where I think it's becoming more about the person's ability to listen and adapt quickly in an environment such as you mentioned just now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think university and college does a lot of really fantastic things. And I think that education is really important for sure. I think, looking back at my 20-year-old self, I probably would have said, hey, like you can kind of take it and continue for one more year. It's not going to kill you. But didn't do that. So I think that they are really important. I think they teach you lots of things as you're going through them, and there's lots of value there for sure. I wouldn't say when I'm looking at someone's resume, their education isn't the first thing that I look at for sure. And I think especially in marketing too, there's a lot of different things that you can have on paper that you can say that you can do, but I want to see that you can do them. I want to hear about how you did them. I want to hear about something you did that really worked. I want to hear about something you did that really didn't work, and why it didn't work and why you think it didn't work. And so that's kind of how I look at hiring a marketer more is, let's talk about what you've done. What are you most proud of? What are you least proud of? What's worked for you? And then tell me about, another thing that I love to do is tell me what I'm doing that's wrong and what you would do differently. So, go through my website, find the errors, find how you would have this campaign different. And, give me that feedback and tell me how you would do it differently, because I think that there's so many people with fantastic ideas throughout, the world that, now we're seeing are getting a platform through online ways of sharing that information with people. And we're seeing a lot of different people who are popping up who maybe don't even have marketing backgrounds, who have really genuinely good ideas. And in this, what is now kind of year 2 of the pivot, we need those ideas, and we need that new perspective and those new, inventive things that people are bringing to the table.
Totally agree with you, Breanne, and I appreciate the insight on that from the perspective of somebody that is, being hired as a marketing person. I run into this quite a bit where I'm talking to coordinators, and there's a lack of accountability. The entrepreneur that's hiring them doesn't necessarily have a kind of a drawn out objective list of, this is what I want to accomplish, this is why I want to accomplish it. How would, in your words, a marketing coordinator go about kind of building those expectations, working with the business owner to kind of define that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a really good point, because a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, they have been really focused on getting their product or their service to market and building out the business side of things. And they haven't necessarily, or they might not have experience in marketing, especially with some of the more, finite details of digital marketing with regards to analytics and tracking and all of that kind of stuff, paid advertising, search engine optimization, all those things are kind of a beast that, unless you've really focused in on those topics, you know, your kind of regular entrepreneur running a small business, they're doing a billion different things already. They haven't had time to watch 1,000 hours of YouTube videos on how to optimize their website. So they really are needing you to bring that information to them. But it is kind of a fine balance, because a lot of times people have ideas about what they think they should be doing, or, they've read something and they think they would like to be doing that. And so as a coordinator, it's really important that you're able to kind of communicate a variety of ideas. That's one thing that I always say, don't come to me with one idea, don't come with one solution. Let's throw a lot of things on the table and brainstorm and see what works. And there does come a balance too with, when you're working with a business owner, you're working with someone who had kind of preconceived notions of what marketing is, you really have to be able to, in a respectful way, kind of spell out why your idea is going to be better. So the best way that I say to do that is based on data. So looking at the data and analytics, if you have access to those, probably in the interview process or something like that, you might not have that information. But you definitely can look at what their competitors are doing. You can look at what they're doing already and come with a variety of suggestions on ways to improve different things. Basic businesses are looking for different things. They're either looking for something that's going to be, their marketing is going to be driving revenue for them. It's building trust within a community. It's a communication platform. It's building engagement. There's multiple different things that the business could be looking to do with their marketing. And so really talking to the owner of the business as a coordinator and saying, where do you want this to go? Do you want people to be coming here in store? Do you want people to be reading our newsletter? Do you want, customers that are going to be coming back for years? What do you want? And then when they say, okay, either they might know, they might not know, they might need some help with that, but they can kind of say, yeah, I want people to recognize our name and know that they trust us, they trust our information. And then the coordinator can say, okay, well, let's, build a content plan. Let's build some strategy around, community initiatives. Let's get, some influencer marketing happening with some trusted resources in the community. And they can kind of come with different things, but it really is a communication. It really is kind of a teamwork concept where there's not one thing that works for every business, and there's not one thing that works for every concept. You can't say Facebook ads are going to work for every single business and it's going to make you lots of money. That might not be the goal of the business, is to make ads through Facebook or make revenue through Facebook. It might not be what the entrepreneur or the business owner wants at the time. Their sales strategy might be 5 years long instead of 5 minutes. And so you really need to be excited and have some of those kind of cookie cutter concepts that you can build out, but be very flexible in them so that you can cater them to what you're doing, and be open to feedback that, the idea that you think really, really is going to work, they might not think that's going to work, and they may need more time for you to show some other things, some smaller things, so they can have trust in your concept and your abilities as well.
Love that, Breanne, and I appreciate the insight. That's super helpful, I think, for people that are navigating that space, especially now. Talking about now, obviously, You talked about the state of the Sens at this point, basically not being on the ice, which is super sad, by the way, because they're doing pretty well. And you talked about changing focus, pivoting, focusing on your partners, things of that nature. What advice would you give to somebody in the here and now, especially when the focus is marketing? What are some insights, some things that you've noticed that are well worth it as far as how time is spent right now?
Yes. So I would say that hopefully by now, if you have a business, it is in the digital space. Hopefully now, a year later, if you have a consumable product, you have an e-commerce platform that you're engaging in. One of the biggest things I think for people that are in marketing right now is to try and cut through some of the noise. With a huge influx of people joining the digital space, website creation, e-commerce platforms, there's lots of people who are using technologies that they've never previously used. There's way more people on social media. There's way more people looking at different things. And there's way more people selling different things specifically to marketing. So a lot of people have seen this as their opportunity to, target small businesses or medium-sized businesses that might be struggling and give them, opportunities or resources available with regards to shifting your marketing into the digital age. And I think it's really important that for people who are looking at those different options, that you are speaking with multiple people about the options available, really recognizing where you can afford to spend money and where that's going to have the most impact for you. For us, it's been a huge piece of content and communication. So making sure that we have, valuable content. If we have amazing season ticket holders who right now are being very, very patient and very, very wonderful. And we are so, so lucky to have them and to have this group of people that are so supportive of us and our team. But they also possibly have already paid for a service that we now are not able to necessarily provide in the way that we want to be able to provide it. So we've had to work on, creating content, creating digital media that we're going to be able to provide them so that they're going to be able to see a value in that. So really looking at, okay, where am I going to be able to either make or maintain the revenue that I have to, and making sure that the spend that you are assigning to that is relative to, what you can actually afford to spend, and what you can take risks with. But a huge thing for me is just really clear communication. So clear messaging, maintaining, if you have a specific aesthetic, making sure that you're maintaining that, making sure that everything kind of looks and feels the same to your consumer or your customer or your fan, but that there is value in that in content, whether it's video or written content, so that people are kind of seeing a return on that for whatever it is that they're purchasing or utilizing. That's been a really big thing for us and for, just using our platform to be able to support some of our smaller partners or some of our different businesses that, have been struggling during this time.
There were so many gems in what you just said there, Breanne, and I think that's super helpful, especially for SMBs. And you talked briefly about cutting through the noise. I'm super curious to pick your brain on this because I think it's kind of like the question that SMBs are asking. They're saying, okay, we know we need to focus on social. We know we need to have a digital presence, but like, how does one cut through the noise? Any bite-size advice, insights from your standpoint of how an SMB would go about doing that?
Mm-hmm. So the main thing is that you are not going to be able to do everything. You are not going to be able, unless you have a team of 50,000 people and one is just focused on Instagram and you got one just on Pinterest and all that stuff, which if you do, I feel like you don't necessarily need any advice from me. But the regular person, the regular marketing person, or even the regular business person, business owner, you cannot do everything. You can't have perfect social media content and perfect email and perfect, digital ads, and you're doing all of it in 5 minutes and all of that kind of stuff. You can't go from 0 to 150 overnight. It's something that takes time. It's something that takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. And so the biggest thing I would say is just kind of go easy on yourself. pick whatever platform your demographic audience, the people that you are specifically trying to reach the most, pick a platform that you are really going to be able to blow up and do 100%. So for us, one of our most important demographics is our season ticket holders. The majority of them are on Facebook. We engage with them on Facebook predominantly. So we try to have the majority of our content going out on all platforms, obviously. But if I was looking at really only being able to focus on kind of one thing this week, and I'm going to get this up and going, I would pick Facebook. So really looking at, okay, is your, audience, 25-year-olds, maybe you're going to be looking on Instagram. Is your audience, more active and engaged? Or are you looking to really kind of, build something and you have kind of a figurehead or a lifestyle person that you could put in that place? Maybe you're going to be going on TikTok. It really depends kind of who you're trying to reach and who you're trying to talk to. And that's going to be one of the ways for you to kind of cut through all of that other stuff. Is you're going to be able to really focus your attention on one thing. And then as you get, more accustomed to dealing with that one platform, you're going to build that out on other things. Instagram and Facebook are linked. So you could easily be having your content going on Instagram at the exact same time as your Facebook. So there's lots of different things, but I normally just would say, focus. You're not going to be able to do everything. You can't be everything for everyone all the time. So just kind of figure out, okay, what is the most important thing for me to be doing? How do I want to make people feel? How do I want to, communicate with people? And then where is my audience? When are they there? And that's how you're going to be able to reach them, is really looking through that data and seeing what's going on.
Breanne, I think that's super important to note. Often I think it's easy, especially for business owners, to get overwhelmed with the thought of going digital. But to your point, I think that really helps to bring some, peace in an easily overwhelming state, focusing on one thing, going hard on that, and really, be making an impact as opposed to spreading yourself thin. Completely agree with you there. I'm so curious around picking your brain around this. Obviously, great organizations like yourself, media spend, typically a large variety as far as how you do your marketing. Any like insights on like how adjustments are being made during this time, thinking of like traditional advertising, digital advertising, where are budgets being moved around? What are your insights there in this time?
Oh, for sure. So one of the first things that we did, we have advertising on essentially I think every platform you can have advertising, we have it. We're trying to reach every demographic audience that exists, it feels like sometimes. So we had, huge amounts of radio advertising, print advertising, newspapers, all that kind of stuff. And then all of our paid and digital stuff as well. And so the first thing that we did obviously was stop everything. We had no clue at the beginning of this if we were going to be not playing for a week, a month, or ever again. So we really had to kind of reel everything back in, stop everything right away, so that we weren't continuing any kind of spend, because we had no concept of when we would have revenue again, really. So right away, I made the decision that I was going to move any budgetary spend we had away from traditional media and into social digital spend. And I purely based that off of we have, corporate partnerships where we were able to offer them digital advertising. And so I would, pivot everything else specifically on that, so that the majority of the eyes that we have and that we can pay to have are looking at that advertising for our corporate partners, and also for just any information that we were going to be having coming up about the season. I wanted that to be in the forefront. And so we pretty much moved the majority of that away. And also something we had never done before really is digital advertising for our merchandise operations. So our merchandise, probably I would say 90% of it sold in our brick and mortar location at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center, or at our in-game location. And that's been the way since, we started in 2017. And so I think last year we had done maybe in total, under $10,000 of sales on our online platform. So luckily we did have an online platform. We had an e-commerce store, but suddenly we were really transitioning. Our marketing had been very ticket specific, obviously, for a very long time, and pivoting that to suddenly now we're advertising our merchandise instead. And because obviously it's an e-commerce platform, we're doing that through social media and paid social. And so that was really, really what we have done, and I think what we will continue to do. I also, just being responsible for my own budget as well. I love that I can track all of my digital advertising, all of my return on ad spend, and I can bring that information forward to our COO, Rob. And so he likes to be able to see that as well. So I've always leaned a little bit heavier in digital than traditional media, just because I am a data-driven marketer, and that's always how I function. And so obviously I want to be able to look back and really pinpoint exactly what every single ad, every single thing I have posted or published or committed to, any spend that I'm having, I want to be able to directly correlate that to a revenue.
And that completely makes sense, Breanne. And I love how you kind of walked through, the different opportunities and the way that you adapted during a time of going from all games to no games. And then, I think that information is very valuable to anybody's going to be listening to this. Breanne, I'm super, super curious around you as, just outside of like marketing day to day. Like, I find that a lot of, most, if not all, marketers are very creative in different ways. And creatives, I find it's like a tribe of dreamers. And we
Yes.
all have, like we all have like the thing that we want to like, do, and what we're kind of working towards. So if we can fast forward, I don't know, maybe like 10 years down the road, not sure if, like, what does Breanne see for herself in her life at that point? Have you thought that far? Any insights you can give us?
Yeah, I think, definitely marketers are dreamers. I think that is for sure. And from a very young age, I had very strong dreams and goals and where I was going. And, obviously, as I said before, had a huge pivot in my early 20s to transition to kind of the life that I'm in now. So in 10 years, if I go back 10 years, I've seen such huge changes and growth in myself and where I've gone in my career and having children and all of that kind of stuff. So 10 years from now. So something that I really loved with working with the Sens is I have a great boss and I have a great leader in my boss. And Rob Maloney is fantastic in lots of different ways. And he's also a really great person in terms of career path concepts. He's done a lot of really amazing things. So he's been one that I've kind of leaned on in terms of the direction that I'm heading in with the Sens and, beyond the Sens and all that kind of stuff. And I always thought I was going to be in marketing. I always wanted to own my own lifestyle brand and do that. And when I started the Sens, I always still thought that that's where I would kind of end up. Doing public speaking and really kind of being a resource for people and for women in particular. But through working with the Sens and being in more of a leadership role with the Sens, I've kind of gotten a bit more of a taste for some of the other aspects of the business as well. So I would say probably in 10 years, and if this doesn't actually end up happening, then we'll just all whatever. But I would say probably in 10 years, I would be either the COO or the CEO of either the Sens or a different kind of large organization similar to that. So I think marketing will always be my heart, and I love it. And I love the creative outlet that it gives me. And I love the data and the tracking and all that stuff. But being in the leadership role with the Sens, I've kind of learned a little bit more about the finance aspects, operations aspects of the business. And so I think that I'm now kind of leaning in more of that kind of direction, I would say, at this point in my career.
Beautiful, Breanne.
bit weird.
Beautiful. I appreciate you sharing. That's awesome insight. I appreciate that. And before I let you go, a question that comes to mind when you think about marketing, what are like 3 words or phrases that kind of come to your mind when you think about, marketing as a whole?
Hmm. I think that one phrase that definitely comes to mind with marketing is, I don't know if you've read the Breanne Brown book, Dare to Lead. It's great if you
I've
haven't
heard
read
of it.
it. Good. And she talks about clear is kind and unclear is unkind.
Wow, you're kidding me. No, okay, hold on a second. Okay, legit. I legitimately heard that for like, I don't know, maybe the 5th or 6th time yesterday. And I'm
Oh,
like,
no
man,
way.
yeah, legit. And I'm like, I gotta send that to my team today. Like, I love that
Yes,
phrase. That's so cool.
it's perfect. And I think it's perfect in life and in lots of different things and in leadership and in community and all that stuff as well. But it really is also important in marketing. And, there's a lot of fluff and a lot of things that happen, and there's a lot of noise and stuff going on all the time in marketing. It's always changing, you're always juggling multiple things. And so really, being clear with your audience, being transparent, being honest with your audience, and being transparent and honest and clear with the people that are around you, managing expectations with people, all of that kind of stuff, I think that's kind of, it builds trust, it builds honesty, it builds acceptance. Those are all kind of things that are marketing to me, is, that honesty and trust and excitement and brand reliability and, huge sales component obviously as well. But, there's a lot of different pieces in that puzzle that lead to that, source of revenue, which is, amazing in the end goal, obviously, but there's all sorts of different things. And, clear is kind of layers its way through that in multiple different ways.
I love that. And that was clearly an affirmation for me today. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Awesome. It's a good one. You have to read the book now, because she talks and it's like the craziest thing. Like, I read that book, I think it was 4 years ago, three or 4 years ago. And I did a book study with it. And it was just the most eye-opening thing. So I always had, I think, thought and kind of functioned in business and in marketing as like, just make it perfect and that's fine. And just make it good and make it perfect. And, and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, no, like it can't always be like that. Like, there has to be that trust component, and people have to be able to trust your business or you or whatever it is. And I think part of that comes from being clear, and sometimes you're not going to be able to tell your customers what they want to hear. And that has
Talk about it. Woo!
true with me
Woo!
in the past year with the Sens. Like, I would love to be able to give everyone good news all the time, but you can't. You can't. So the best you can do is be clear and honest, because people will rely on that, they will trust that, and they will value that over anything else every day.
Oh man, that 1000% resonates with me. And to your point, yeah, you have to be honest and upfront. And I mean, like, I'll give you an example. Like, literally the other day, I was in a like a 3-way like virtual call, myself, a coach, brand agent, and then a client. And they're talking about wanting to get back into marketing, da 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 da. And they said how like the marketing company they were with was sending them like all these leads, and basically they had to like let them go because they couldn't keep up with the amount of business that was coming their way. So now they're in a meeting with me, and as soon as the meeting ends, I look over to the coach and I was like, so if that was working, and if that agency found what was right for that client, why are they trying to leave them now?
Yeah.
Because like like I would actually say like go back to them. Like if they found something that worked for you, instead of me wasting time trying to help you find right, you've already found it with this other firm.
Yeah.
So why don't you keep going ahead doing that? But like I love how you brought that up, because that's how I think. Like, you have to just keep it honest and like not care if you don't get the business as a result.
Yeah. Especially in these times. Like, never before has it been more important to be open and honest and transparent with your stakeholders, with your customers, with your client, all of those types of things, because there's so many people who are trying to, pull the wool over people's eyes and make it seem that everything is perfect. Well, we know that it is not perfect. Like, we are all living this reality right now, right alongside you. So be real with us, be here in the trenches with us, because that's what's going to make you relatable. That's what, like, 5 years from now, people are going to remember the businesses and the products and the services that were relatable and approachable and that built trust during this time, not the one that they saw on Instagram and 1,000 other people had bought it. And so they clicked and they bought it once, and it either never arrived or they had horrible customer service. They're not going to go back to those people. They're going to want to support the businesses that have been there for them.
100% agree with you. And this is going to be a cool blooper. Like this, the sun keeps moving on me. So,
Yeah.
so I have to like close. There we go. I have to close the blind a little bit because I'm like inching into the corner, and the sun's like right there, and I'm like, ah.
It's coming for me.
That's right. There we go. Well, Breanne, listen, I'm so happy that you were able to join today and just share your thoughts, share your heart, share your insights. Thank you so much for being a part and joining the Shop Talk Quinny podcast today. You are a wealth of knowledge, and I really wish you all the best going forward with the Sens and in your life.
Thank you. You too. And thanks for having me today.